Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Anish Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Monday night live stream for Week 10 of the 2024 fantasy football season. Over the course of the next hour plus, we're answering any and all fantasy football questions, whether it is waiver wire questions in regards to Week 10, potential trade potential trade conversations. I don't know why the word conversation did not want to speak as properly as it should have, but whether it's a trade, whether it's overall waiver wire conversation, you can ask a question regarding Week 10, starts and sits. I'm going to objectively tell you that the answer will probably change by the time we get to Sunday because, again, as the week progresses, the more information and the more research that I go ahead and gather, the easier it will be to answer those questions. That's why we, of course, have live streams every single day so that as the days progress over the course of the week and I gather more information, of course, I can deliver to you the most up-to-date rankings. That's why, of course, we have Sunday morning rankings, Saturday afternoon rankings, all that kind of jazz. And, of course, why we post rankings Tuesday through Thursday. Outside of that, again, if you guys have any questions, make sure you include your scoring format. Again, this is a very exciting game between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Kansas City Chiefs, but only in the second half. That first half did not feel very exciting, to say the very least. I honestly was almost falling asleep on the couch. Multiple occasions I had to get up and walk around in order to keep myself awake, because otherwise, if it wasn't for the late game heroics of one Baker Mayfield, who, again, another consecutive week in which he is proving that he is an elite talent at the quarterback position. If it wasn't for his late game heroics, we wouldn't have seen such an incredible game, and many of us wouldn't have been able to capture all the fantasy points we required in order to capture a victory in Week 9. But again, if you captured a victory in Week 9, congratulations. If you avoided the injuries that took place in Week 9, consider yourself extremely lucky, because honestly, the injuries to primetime players continues to stack up, and it is not looking great. So, of course, if you have any questions, let me know, and let's get into it, shall we? Alrighty, let's see here. The first question of the day, or the first super chat, was sent in by Joey Boy, who says, got offered Garrett Wilson for Hunt and Higgins. Take it? Yeah, look, the most recent report that I had specifically seen regarding Pacheco, let me see if I can go find the actual article that references it. Let's see here. Okay, so as of 1 day ago, via NFL.com, the report was that Isaiah Pacheco was targeting a late November return. So late November would theoretically be either the 3rd or the 4th week of November, which would either be, this is going to be Week 10 upcoming, so that's Week 11. So either Week 12 or 13 potentially, he would be returning. So again, eventually, Kareem Hunt is going to disappear. You've got about 2 or 3 more weeks with Kareem Hunt until he's gone. In the long term, yes, I would rather have Garrett Wilson than T. Higgins. And if you have to give away Kareem Hunt now in order to secure that, I think I'm willing to make that move, Joey Boy. Thank you. All right, moving on to Trife, who sends in a question. Says, trade question in the chat. All right, sounds good. Says, do I trade Tillman for Pollard and Brian Robinson? Oh, really? You can trade them for both? Okay, I have Zay, I have Myers, I have Puka, Pop Douglas, and Nico coming back off of the IR. Running backs are JT, Javante, and Montgomery. A lot of my team has Week 14 bye, so I need depth. Listen, if you're able to trade away Cedric Tillman and get back Tony Pollard and Brian Robinson Jr., 2 for 1, you absolutely make that deal. No questions asked. You're good to go. Trife, thank you. Nick Q435 says, I keep losing by 1. Olave. Dude, I feel bad for Olave. That concussion is going to be brutal. Again, like I mentioned earlier today on the waiver wire video that I posted on the channel, I don't think he's going to be able to at least scrape past the IR. He's going to be on a 4-game stint to the IR, for sure. There's no way. From what I've seen in the past, the most recent player that I can remember that has sustained 2 concussions within a month, at least offensive player that is a fantasy option that at least I'm well aware of, was Pat Freiermuth a couple years back, and in that overall circumstance was sent to the injured reserve. So I think there's a possibility that we could see the same thing from Olave, in which he is sent to the IR. That's why we talked about Mason Tipton earlier today in regards to his potential for fantasy for the remainder of the season here, because again, if Olave with the second concussion in 4 weeks is going to potentially be out for an extended period of time in order to recover, it's going to be rough there. Let's see here. Jesus Chavez sends in a question. Says, I trade Tyreek/Stevenson for Olave, Breece Hall, full PPR. Again, like I just mentioned, I don't know if Olave is going to be able to sneak away from an IR stint. You don't get 2 concussions within a month and see players often play, for the remainder of the year until they come back from a couple weeks of time off. So at the current moment, I'm going to lean in the direction of saying no, let's not take that deal, even though again, if I can get a confirmation that Olave could be healthy for the remainder of the season, I'd probably tell you to take it. But as of right now, you can't, because it's just too dangerous and too volatile of a situation, because we just don't know what his current status is going forward. Justin has sent in a question, said, I got offered James Cook and Keenan Allen for Kupp and Dowdle. I mean, considering that we're going to probably see Dak Prescott miss at least a couple weeks, if not the remainder of the season, we're probably going to be in a situation in which, looking at this trade as a whole, okay, look, Keenan Allen in my mind doesn't have any kind of value at all. I think I'd rather still have Kupp and Dowdle in this conversation, Justin. I think I'd rather just have the Kupp side because Keenan Allen doesn't really provide much value in my opinion. He's had a couple good weeks. 1 week against the Jacksonville Jaguars in London, but outside of that 2-touchdown performance, really hasn't seen much upside. I mean, outside of Rome Odunze this most recent week, the wide receivers for the Bears have suffered as of late. Let's see here. Messiah has sent in a question. Says, just traded Jaden Reed and Devon Achane for A.J. Brown and James Cook. Bad move? Okay. Depends on A.J. Brown's knee injury. If A.J. Brown's knee injury is not a significant or serious one, which again, from what I read earlier today, based on the report, they said it's not as serious as originally expected, and he should be, day to day, and could potentially end up suiting up for Week 10. But we're gonna have to wait and see how that goes. But as of right now, in regards to the overall trade, let's hope for the best. Devon Achane, based on how he's played, again, the last 4 games with Tua Tagovailoa, every game in a half PPR, over 19 fantasy points. Every game in a full PPR, over 23 fantasy points. You may have given away the potential, the house in Achane's overall ability for the remainder of the season, but let's just hope that, A.J. Brown's healthy and ready to go rest of the way. Let's see here. Ibrahim has sent in a question. Thank you, Ibrahim. Says 3 questions. Is Nico back? I have no clue. Again, technically he's supposed to be activated this week. As to whether or not he is healthy, that is to be determined. From what we heard earlier today from the Houston Texans coach, he specifically said we're going to have to keep that monitored, and as the week progresses, if he is on the right track, then we're going to play him. Otherwise, we could probably hold him out for another week because there's nothing that holds them to having to play him. Again, this upcoming week, Houston takes, I'm trying to remember, who do they actually take on? Texans schedule. They take on the Lions. I mean, I think regardless of whether or not Nico Collins is active, they're losing this week. So in this circumstance, we'll have to wait and see whether or not he's healthy. And if he's not, I mean, again, I would, if I'm a Nico Collins manager, hold him out another week. I don't need him just yet. I need him for the final stretch of games, especially if I've got a solid record already, to the point to where I just want him healthy and I don't want no risk of re-injury, especially with a hamstring situation. And then you said Chase Brown, top 12 running back this week. Well, it depends. He's dealing with a quad bruise. Hopefully, he's going to be at a full capacity. But again, if he is, I would expect by tomorrow, he's going to be in that top 12 conversation for sure. Because again, Zach Moss earlier today, based on what Taylor, the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, said, he said that Zach Moss is out indefinitely with a neck injury. So that makes Chase Brown the starting running back of the Cincinnati Bengals rest of season. And like we projected this offseason, he was eventually going to take the job. Now, it wasn't projected off of injury, but in this circumstance, the injury has caused that overall situation to transpire to Chase, obviously taking over and being a dominant force. Also, despite only 9 points, are you encouraged by Ingram's opportunities? Yeah, absolutely. Listen, anytime you can get double-digit targets from your studs, that is great. Going forward, again, I do anticipate that the offense will be a little bit sharper. They looked solid in the second half because of the turnovers that we're causing, but obviously, it's just a matter of it's purely just Trevor Lawrence. If Trevor Lawrence can play better and step up a little bit, he'll obviously be in a situation in which, of course, Evan Ingram's upside will continue to grow. But yeah, double-digit targets, very promising. Take Flight Mike says, Reeves heartbroken. Yeah, I was heartbroken as well. I watched the first quarter of the Lakers game because I had included Reeves within the overall slip. But I went and I insured myself in doing so. Even though on earlier today's episode, I suggested taking Reeves within the slip, I also went and I just took the slip without Reeves so that it would hit anyway because I knew it was going to hit. It's just Reeves, 1 for 4 shooting in the first quarter, missed 2 layups and bricked a 3. He just had to kill me. But yeah, so that other slip didn't hit, but I hedged my bets and I went and I took these other 3 within the overall slip that was suggested earlier today. And I pretty much got my money back and then some. But outside of that, in terms of overall picks from this past weekend, even though the touchdown play from the underdog entry that I put in the Hidden Gems episode didn't hit with Henry, Kyron, and Kamara. Obviously, Kyron didn't score. The other overall play, not that one. This one overall went and hit, which was great. Now, we did get lucky. Okay, I will tell you, we did skid by barely from, Brock Bowers' receptions, one more than with the number, basically a half extra. And Devontae Smith, his final grab of the game, that ridiculous reception in the back of the end zone down the sideline. What else did I have? Because I got rescued on one of the plays, I was able to take advantage of this. I already knew that Hopkins was going to have a good game. But I got lucky with the Kareem Hunt touchdown at the end of that one. But yeah, Hopkins, again, he was a hidden gem. The hidden gems this last week, dude, I mean, what kind of a lottery ticket was that? Absolute machines across the board. Mike Gesicki should not have put up 25 fantasy points, but hey, I'll take it. I got no problem with that at all. Definitely saved some of my fantasy teams. All right, let's see here. Brian has sent in a question, nothing attached to it. Brian, let me see if you have anything in the live chat. Brian, if you could do me a favor, let's see here. Okay, I see your question, Brian. It says, my running backs are McCaffrey. Okay, I need to actually scroll up here. I think I lost your question a little bit. YouTube's lagging a little bit. There it is. Okay. My running backs are McCaffrey, Jacobs, Tracy Jr., Brown, Mason, Garendo. My wide receivers are Moore, BTJ, Mooney, and Pearsall. Okay, so your wide receivers are cooked. Do you like either Flowers and Mostert or Reed and Mostert for Mooney and Tracy? I don't like either of the two, to be honest. But if you're looking to like significantly upgrade wide receiver, I don't know. Look, the issue that I have is that giving away Mooney does not help in this scenario. Like, Mooney can actually start for you going forward. Like, he's good enough, especially with the Drake London injury, the hip pointer. If Drake London's going to miss any sort of circumstance of time, Mooney could be even more valuable going forward, to where, like, I don't want to be giving away a wide receiver. Like, I'd like to go 1-for-1 running back for wide receiver, and if you can convince them to take Flowers, or sorry, not Flowers. Well, obviously they're not going to give you Flowers for Tracy straight up. Maybe you have to give another running back in order to secure that, but I would try to go and find another just 1-for-1 wide receiver for Tracy if you can potentially get that to occur, because I think losing depth at wide receiver doesn't help. And getting back Mostert, I think, is not something that you want. Again, Mostert, he's going to get himself his 10 rushing attempts per game, but if he doesn't score a touchdown, he's not a startable option, and nor do you need him on your roster because you're not really handcuffing HN either. So in this circumstance, I would try to take the Mooney and Tracy deal and go and try to find a wide receiver, like a duo wide receiver that you can get in return to give yourself significant depth in the overall conversation. So again, if it was me, I'm looking for 2 wide receivers in return rather than a running back wide receiver combination there, Brian. All right, let's see here. After Brian, we had a question that came in from, let's see here, Dirk Doug, who says questions in the chat. All right, Doug, let me see what you got. All right, there's Douglas, but where? Okay, there it is. Dirk Doug says, should I trade McCaffrey and Jaden Reed for Jefferson? No, absolutely not. I could potentially get Najee from him as well. I mean, again, look, need I remind you what Christian McCaffrey is capable of? Like, especially if you're playing in a full PPR, like, expect 25 points a week rest of the season. Like, that's the Christian McCaffrey that we know and love. And that's what we're expecting to see this year. Again, they've held him out for 10 weeks of football. No, plus, actually, because he didn't practice all of training camp. They've held him out 13 weeks now? So 3 months off, I would assume we're going to get the full capacity of what a Christian McCaffrey is capable of. Because again, if he wasn't healthy, he wouldn't be returning. And now that he's healthy, ready to go, again, we should get the 25 plus point per game Christian McCaffrey. That again, trading for just Jefferson isn't really going to be able to help you. If anything, you're losing on this trade because you have to give Jaden Reed and Christian McCaffrey. Getting Najee back in return doesn't really make me excited about it. So I'd rather have Christian McCaffrey. You've held him this long, Dirk. Why make it easy on somebody else's future by giving them, for free? All right, let's see here. Here we go. Marvin sent in a question. Thank you, Marvin. Marvin says, trade Kelsey for a wide receiver, depth, excuse me. I have Otton on my bench, full PPR, Barkley, Kamara, Devontae Smith, Nakua, JSN, and Pollard on flex. Okay, so you've got ridiculous talent here. So in terms of running back, obviously neither of those are going to be replaced. Devontae Smith, Nakua, JSN, Paul. I mean, look, you've got studs across the board. If I'm looking to trade one of the two, I mean, again, I think it would be easier to trade Kelsey as of right now, Otton is coming off of 3 really solid weeks. So is Kelsey technically, but I mean, whichever one is easier to trade for you, yeah, I'm willing to go ahead and make that move. Because again, Otton is going to be implicated to be a primary receiver the rest of the season because there is no Chris Godwin returning. Evans will eventually return, but that isn't going to dig into the overall workload that Otton is seeing on a day, on a game by game basis. So yeah, if you're looking to potentially get more wide receiver depth, absolutely. If you could trade away Kelsey, let me see here. Let me see what kind of a name I could throw out in terms of, because obviously you're going to have to find a team in your league that doesn't have a tight end and wants to have Kelsey on your roster and they're willing to give a wide receiver. So once you can kind of figure out which team is on your radar within your league that is more, receptive to that kind of a move in which they would want to take Kelsey in order to get the overall services or get the overall services of Kelsey in exchange for a wide receiver. Once you can, figure out what team that is in your league, I think you'll be in a pretty strong spot there. Let's see here. So obviously, Kelsey in a full PPR, 15.9, 16.0, 5.7, 25. So let's say, for example, you're looking for like a wide receiver that is more or less like a 17, 16 point per game kind of player in exchange for him. So if we're looking for players of this caliber, I mean, at this point, the type of players you could theoretically go for would be like a Devontae Smith. You could go after a DK Metcalf if you're okay with waiting another week, because again, after the bye week, he would theoretically return. Otherwise, again, a Terry McLaurin-esque player, but that's going to be difficult considering the week he's coming off of. I was going to say a Zay Flowers, but again, he's coming off of also a 2-touchdown week. Let's see. In terms of other players you can technically go after, I guess you could go after like a Devontae Adams. You could certainly go after an Evans, but again, that would require you waiting a little while until you get the required time to pass for him to heal. Again, they were kind of anticipating or speculating a week 12 return in this circumstance. You could buy low on Neighbors right now, I think. I think that's certainly on the table. St. Brown hasn't played well as of late. Higgins has been absent, but again, eventually will return. But Deebo Samuel is another name that you could potentially go after. I think is very valuable. BTJ could also be another name. So just try to go after those if potentially available. And they obviously fall in line with the, I need a tight end and I have a plethora of wide receivers that I'm willing to pass out. All right, let's see here. But otherwise, the rest of your team looks really solid, Marvin. I mean, you don't really have to make this move, but yeah, if someone wants to certainly help you out at wide receiver in exchange for Kelsey or Otten, make it happen. Nathan Smith says, asked about starting JSN over Ridley for the floor on Sunday, but ended up starting Ridley. Whoops. Thankfully still won. Yeah, JSN had an absolutely nuclear game. I had literally no clue that kind of production was even possible for JSN. I mean, again, we knew the kind of wide receiver he was coming out of college, out of Ohio State University, but whatever they just unlocked out of him, hopefully does not go away. Hopefully those kind of opportunities, the vertical stretching the field opportunities, are going to continue to be relevant within his overall catalog of routes that he runs. Hopefully it's not only in the absence of DK Metcalf that he is given those opportunities. Now obviously they're going on to the bye week, so we're going to have to wait a week, and obviously once DK Metcalf comes back, we'll have to kind of reestablish what exactly JSN is going to be capable of. But my goodness, was he incredible. He should have, I mean, honestly, if it wasn't for the terrible play calling of the Seattle Seahawks, they should have beat the Rams easily. Late in that game, terrible play calling leads to a 3rd down and a 4th down run that, again, turnover on downs, and you get yourself into quite a situation. While the entirety of that second half, JSN is torching the Rams to the extent to where just back it up and throw it to him. Let your guy who is on having a career day carry you. What did he have, like 35 fantasy points? It was ridiculous. All right, Catacombs Kid sending in a question, said, trade Waddle plus Tracy for Najee and Pickens? Yeah, absolutely. I'd be willing to make that move. Nathan sent in a follow-up, says, should I consider trading CeeDee Lamb this week? He's been good, but not amazing so far. And with the injury, seems like he might be the moment. Yeah, if you can trade him away to someone that is unsuspecting of the Dak Prescott injury, then sure. But otherwise, I think it's going to be relatively difficult in order to trade him away, because again, you have to understand, everyone's going to eventually get the news that Dak Prescott is going to miss not only this upcoming week, but for multiple weeks up ahead. And maybe even, again, if they're in a terrible enough situation in terms of overall win-loss record, they may not have him return at all for the remainder of the year, especially if this injury, once they go ahead and get an MRI on it, if they determine it requires, significance to where a surgery is required or an extended period of time out is required, CeeDee Lamb's value would go to the gutter. Now, I will say, in the past, we have seen CeeDee Lamb years ago play with Cooper Rush, to where CeeDee Lamb is still going to be a relevant option. He just won't be in that top 12 conversation. He'll be more of a top 18 wide receiver in a solid matchup, which he'll have the upside of getting to the low end wide receiver one conversation with a touchdown. But again, he's going to be like a top 20 kind of wide receiver with Cooper Rush, because he'll still get the targets. Cooper Rush has proven that he can continue to feed CeeDee Lamb the ball enough to be a relevant option in the absence of Dak Prescott. But yeah, if you can, might as well. Rogo says, you're truly... Okay, thank you very much, Rogo. I appreciate it. Says, another W, Otten saved me. Trading Hunt for Downs to Pacheco manager. Should I veto? Wait. Okay, hold on. Let me get context here. Trading Hunt for Downs to Pacheco manager. Should I veto? I got Gibbs, David Montgomery, was desperate for a wide receiver. Higgins slash Coop. Should you veto trading Hunt for Downs? I don't think so. I mean, again, I'm pretty sure that they're continuing to double down in Indianapolis, that they want to continue to start Joe Flacco as the starting quarterback there. And Downs, even though he had the minimum kind of production, 6 catches for 60 yards, which again is his minimum baseline, he's still going to have upside performances. And again, like we mentioned earlier on the live stream, the expectation based on a report that came out yesterday is that they expect Pacheco to return late November. So either week 11 or 12 is the expectation. So you'll only have a couple more weeks with Hunt. So I still don't mind the move. If you want to veto it, again, that's totally up to you and your prerogative as to how you want to go about it. Christian Tucker sends in a question, says, should I make a trade? I'm 5-4. Mayfield is my streaming quarterback, which again, I mean, he's really your starting quarterback at this point. Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, D-Hop, Deontay Johnson, Kyron Williams, Achane, Pacheco, Chase Brown, and Njoku. I don't think you require a trade in any sort of capacity. Lamb obviously is going to be a lesser option, but I mean, at this point, I mean, you can hold out on Lamb because you have Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, D-Hop, which are just great. And honestly, Lamb being at a top 18-20 capacity, even in the absence of Dak Prescott, is still relevant enough to where he could be a flexible option in your circumstance. On top of the fact that you have great running backs, Kyron, Pacheco, Achane, Chase Brown, and Njoku. Mayfield, again, is a start every single week. He does have an upcoming bye week, so again, prepare for that. But otherwise, I don't believe you have to make any changes at all in this circumstance. Just Get It Done sends in a question. It says, current team, Burrow / Achane, Kyron, Mixon, Hubbard, Tracy. Okay. Lamb, London, Higgins, Bowers, Hawkinson. Trade Hubbard for BTJ or Pickens. I'd be comfortable with either of those moves. Again, Jonathan Brooks is expected to return this week. They do take on the Giants. With Jonathan Brooks coming back, he will begin to really dig into the overall workload and opportunity share of Hubbard. That is the expectation because, again, Hubbard is on the final year of his rookie deal. And obviously they drafted Jonathan Brooks to be the future of this organization. So as we approach, I would assume that there's a pretty good chance that, of course, Jonathan Brooks really begins to take over in the late half of the season like we kind of expected. Obviously, we didn't expect him to take this long to finally get, going, but I would assume that making that trade for either BTJ or Pickens, I don't mind either of the two. I think they're both pretty solidified options going forward. Obviously, BTJ needs to just get fully healthy and see a little bit more target share, and he's good. But I think both of them are great trades. Whichever one they want to give you, I'll take in this overall exchange. Emily Dole says, thank you for advertising, playing Otten over Rashad. I went from 1% chance to winning by 8 points. Listen, Kate Otten is a machine. It is ridiculous. It's funny because the offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen, former Rams offensive coordinator, when they used to utilize Tyler Higbee a lot. Like back in the day, in that specific season, if I'm not mistaken, Tyler Higbee was like a top 10 tight end. So it just happened to be where everything is opened up for Otten to really take over. In the past, even with Brady or Mayfield last season, he was really just like, I'm 100% contingent on scoring a touchdown. Otherwise, I'm not relevant. But man, this offense is really just predicated on getting the ball to him consistently, which obviously he had himself a great game, scored a touchdown. Glad it helped. And I'm glad you captured the victory there, Emily. All right, let's see here. We had a question from Daniel. Daniel, where art that question? Let's see here. Daniel already says, hi, Andrew. I'm in a 12-man 2-flex full PPR, currently 6-3. I have Bijan, Cook, Aaron Jones, Adams, T. Higgins, Amari Cooper, Deontay Johnson, Dalton Schultz, Javonte Williams, etc. What should I do from here? I mean, looking at your team as a whole, Bijan is fantastic. He's coming off of the most touches he has had in a singular game yesterday, which is fantastic. Now, again, unfortunately, they get down to the goal line. For some reason, they decide, let's get Algier the ball and have him score. I don't get it. Whatever. It doesn't matter. It's few and far between. Either way, 7 receptions will get the job done, especially in a full PPR. But Bijan's great. Cook, obviously not as much opportunity yesterday, but again, he has his moments here and there. Aaron Jones is great. Obviously hasn't scored a touchdown recently, but he'll get back on track. I can assure you this. Adams is solid. T. Higgins, once healthy, is great. Amari Cooper, we're going to have to figure out. Deontay Johnson, we're going to have to figure out. Wow, you somehow got all of the wide receivers on roster that eventually got traded. Maybe T. Higgins gets traded tomorrow. I mean, at this point, you've somehow gotten all the trade wide receivers, Daniel, which is ridiculous. Schultz is probably your weakest link to where you need to absolutely address that. If, again, players like Hunter Henry, Taysom Hill, Mike Gesicki are somehow still available in your league, I think you should, obviously address one of those 3 as a potential pickup on the waivers this week, And then as for if those aren't available, Jonnu Smith needs to be picked up because I really do not believe that Schultz is again, he hasn't seen very much red zone opportunity. Not only that, but this offense just really doesn't look great. And even with Nico Collins coming back, that's not going to open up more opportunity for Schultz, unfortunately. So really that is your big, your biggest weakness outside of Amari Cooper's uncertainty and Deontay Johnson's uncertainty going forward. Schultz needs to immediately be addressed as a potential upgrade. If you can't do so via waiver wire, then you're going to have to trade a running back. And I would probably take like Aaron Jones and Amari Cooper and trade them for a wide receiver and a tight end in exchange. I'd try to do something like that. Go find somebody that has 2 tight ends, who's willing to give you like a Hawkinson plus a solid wide receiver in exchange for that, and let's shake it up a little bit here. Thank you, Daniel. Dylan sends in a question, says full PPR. Chat team is in the chat in 3 and 6. Whole team is hurt now. Really? The whole team? Okay, I have JD, Lamb, Olave, holy moly, BTJ, Deontay, Acham, Pollard, Swift, Dowdle, McBride. Okay, not the whole team. My team finally got good. I thought that then all my receivers died. I need help for trades. Also, Giants or KC this week. KC versus Denver. I mean, look, at this point, if you've got KC's defense, I think I'll just continue to ride with them. But again, playing against Carolina, it seems pretty advantageous. But if you've already got KC on roster, I'm not going to swap it. I just keep it as is. I don't want to waste the waiver priority trying to go for another defense and lose my overall positioning or have to use Fab for it. Okay, so as for your team as a whole, you're probably in a position, Dylan, where you're trading away Olave. You're probably also trading, considering your team is 3 and 6, right? You have to win out. You have to win every single game henceforth for the remainder of the season. So I'm trading Lamb, I'm trading Olave, I'm trading anybody who is not healthy and playing this week. They are off the team outright. If that means trading Lamb for a significantly lesser player, you have to explain to your whole league the circumstance. I am looking to win this week. I do not care about future weeks. I don't give a fuck if I'm losing objectively. I need to win now. So you're trying to this week pretty much play the matchups, continue with the hot hand and go after a specific wide receiver that by the time I get to Wednesday's wide receiver rankings video is in the conversation of potentially being in that top 20, overall mix, and swapping out wide receivers in exchange for them so that you can have an actual team that isn't compromised due to injury and is going to be active. So yeah, again, you're making every trade in the book that you possibly can. And you have to kind of preface to your league so they don't veto it down that, hey, I'm trying to win. I have to win out. Therefore, I'm going to make trades that may not be favorable for me for the future. But again, if I lose one game, I'm done anyway. So I have to make these kind of bold decisions and make these crazy trades. King Carl has sent in a question. Says, I'm 4 and 5 in a 10-man full PPR. Second in points, for which is our 6th place wild card into the playoffs. Okay, good to hear. Okay, very good, very good. So basically, if you don't make the playoffs, so the final spot to get into playoffs is based on total points scored, which again, in your case, very favorable. So basically, you just got to keep starting the best lineup, doesn't matter who you play, which again, I think that is an awesome overall rule within the league. Let's see, it says play into playoffs. 3 weeks in a row, lost after the 2-minute warning in a Monday night game. Starting to lose my mind. King Carl, at this point, if I was you, I would just stop watching the Monday night games, brother. That's putting too much stress on you, man. That's rough. I'm sorry to hear that. But hey, let's just keep hoping that the team continues to pull through and keep scoring points here. Joel Garza sends in a question. Garza, where art thou question? Let's see here. Let's find it. Garza says, should I still look to trade Hunt? Again, yeah, why wouldn't we? Again, here's the thing. If you want to hold on to Kareem Hunt, understand that, again, Pacheco will eventually return in week 11 or 12. Once that happens, you're either going to get a split backfield or you're going to get even worse where he is completely irrelevant in the overall conversation and Pacheco will fully take over. So, at the moment, I'm leaning in the direction of most likely, let's try to move him. If you're not moving away Hunt, you are trading for Pacheco. There's one of two ways. If you want to sit on your hands and not move him, then again, you will, unfortunately, you'll pay the consequence of having not made an action with his overall circumstance. Alrighty, let's go ahead. Trevor Lim in the chat says, Tyreek for Puka PPR. If you're willing to make the risk of trading for Puka with the implicated knee injury and the potential risk of that, if you're okay with the risk that is implied, then I'm okay with it. But you have to be comfortable in understanding that you could trade for Puka, and in any given day, at any given practice on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday afternoon, you could get the report that pings on your phone and says Puka Nacua sustained another knee injury, he's out for the season. Just expect that to be a potential outcome. If you're okay and you can live with that, then why not? All right, let's see here. Let me reload this. I had a crash to YouTube for a second there. Okay, let's get back in live chat. Honey says, okay. Let me see this. Okay, so if that's all you have to say, then we'll let it be. Tony Lopez in the chat says Gesicki, Jonnu, or Taysom Hill this week. As of right now, I mean, look, if we're talking about rest of season, and okay, actually it depends. If it's a full PPR, Tony, I'm probably just going to play Gesicki because, first of all, it's a Thursday game, so it's a short week already. They play against the Ravens, one of the best tight end matchups you can possibly ask for. And it's just going to be like an automatic plug and play. And on top of it, Eric All just tore his ACL, which is another one of the tight ends that gets himself, if I'm not mistaken. Let me pull up the numbers here in terms of Cincinnati snap counts. So Cincinnati Bengals this season, Eric All Jr., the rookie tight end. So like prior to yesterday, I mean, he was playing 41, 51, 43, 52, 60% of the snaps in these individual games. Now, obviously, Mike Gesicki only still played 36% of the snaps yesterday, and we saw a lot of Drew Sample and, of course, a lot of Tanner Hudson. Obviously, those guys are blocking the vast majority of the time. But as of right now, yes, if it was me, I would play Mike Gesicki in this situation. Telugu, I'd also ask Gesicki or Kincaid in a half PPR. I'd rather play Gesicki, especially against the Baltimore Ravens. Again, guys, we've seen tight ends dominate against that defense all season long. I would anticipate that we're going to continue to get that overall kind of pressure in the direction of throwing the ball in the direction of Gesicki, especially in the absence of T. Higgins, because we saw what Joe Burrow did a couple weeks back against the Ravens. 5 touchdowns, 500 yards, overtime game. He should be able to continue to do damage against that secondary. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in from John, who says, make a trade, ? Burrow, Kyron, Cook, Jacobs, Chase, Pickens, Ingram. Okay. Let's see here. In terms of the starting lineup, Burrow doesn't move, Kyron doesn't move, James Cook doesn't need to move, Jacobs is fine, Chase is fine, Pickens is fine, Evan Ingram is solid. Bench consists of Hopkins, Waddle, Ridley, Hawkinson. Sell high on D-Hop. I mean, you could try to sell high on D-Hop, but like, what are you going to get in exchange, right? Like, if you're going to trade D-Hop away, technically you don't need a running back, so you would be trading him, and I don't think you need a quarterback or tight end either. You'd be trading him for, in exchange for a wide receiver. So if you want to, you could theoretically go and try to move him for Nico Collins. No, I mean, you can't actually, unless you have a league that is a little bit less, I guess less knowledgeable or uninitiated. You could theoretically go after that kind of a situation where you're trading for a player that has not played as well in the last couple of weeks and may have had a couple down performances, like an AJ Brown per se. Like, oh, someone's thinking he's more injured than possible. You can make that swap and try to get away with it, but I doubt that that's possible. It's probably more capable of moving D-Hop for someone like Devontae Adams, if I had to guess. Which, again, if you want to make that kind of a lateral move, you certainly can. Otherwise, I don't think it's required as of right now. Because, quite frankly, unless you get like a significantly better option, you're typically just going to keep your starting lineup as is there every single week. Unless a matchup is just undeniable to where you would play that wide receiver over Pickens in that circumstance. Thank you for the question. Easy E sends in a question, says, thanks. I started the Chargers defense and I won. Congratulations. Yeah, Jameis Winston came back out and he started throwing picks. It's incredible. God's Gang sends in a question. Says, won tonight by less than 2 points. Otten is a dog. Absolutely. I had Olave and London in this lineup and still pulled it out in 6-3. Congratulations. That is a ridiculous clutch. Rebels Feet says, I'm stacked at running back. I have JT, Achane, Kenneth Walker, Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, and Tank Bigsby. My wide receivers are Tyreek, McLaurin, Leggett, Cedric Tillman, and Ridley. Should I trade for a better wide receiver? I mean, look, across the board, Tyreek Hill, McLaurin, and Cedric Tillman are probably starts every single week for the remainder of the season. If Tillman continues to get that target share, I don't think you need to make a move. Now, obviously, JT, Achane, and Walker are your starting running backs. I do not believe that, again, Kareem Hunt's going to disappear in a couple weeks. Nick Chubb is not startable, and Tank Bigsby is not startable, especially with Etienne's return. Therefore, unless you're moving those fodder pieces, Hunt, Chubb, Bigsby in order to get a wide receiver, that would be the only move that you can theoretically accomplish. That, or at least I would suggest that you make, is moving those kind of non-starters in order to try to get yourself more depth, which again, I don't think you require unless again you can move, for example, let's say for example, you can move Kareem Hunt plus Tillman or Chubb plus Tillman and get a huge wide receiver upgrade. Sure. But outside of that, again, not necessary. All right, let's see here. We had a question from Damien who says, I'm currently 4-5 in a full PPR in a 12-man league. I need a running back to replace Jacobs. I have Tillman, Higgins, Pearsall, and Keenan Allen to trade away. Help me out with some packages I can throw out there. Ray Davis on waivers. Yeah, you don't want Ray Davis. Jacobs is not going to sit for Ray Davis in any circumstance. The issue with Jacobs is that he just got his stolen, the touchdown that was stolen late in the game is pretty much the determining factor as to whether or not he was going to be relevant. And that is just an unfortunate circumstance that they give it to Emmanuel Wilson, but, shit happens. Tyler Algier, same day, same kind of situation, late in the game, steals a touchdown. It will happen. So I'm not going to exaggerate or kind of get too worried in this situation, Damien. I'm just going to kind of roll with it. But as for kind of moving those pieces, I think the easiest piece to theoretically move is Tillman, because he goes on a bye week this week, and of course he's coming off of 3 incredible performances, and he has been pretty much 18 plus fantasy points in each of the last 3 games. So if you can sell him high off of that potential to where you can theoretically get back a Brian Robinson Jr. or a potential conversation in which, if you can get a James Conner in return, I'm going for it. Obviously, that's going to be very difficult because you're only giving away 1 wide receiver. If they want 2, give them 2, but don't give them Higgins and Cedric. It would have to be one of the 2 plus, one of your Pearsall or Keenan Allens. So 2 for 1 in that situation. I'd be willing to go after a Najee Harris. I don't mind that at all. I'd be willing to go after a Tyrone Tracy. I don't have an issue with that either. But again, Montgomery's of the world. You would go after just about everyone. It's just a matter of, is anybody willing to part ways with a starting running back from their roster in order to just get a receiver? That is going to be the most difficult find in your circumstance. So yes, there are a lot of great running backs to go after. Like I just mentioned, again, Tracy's, Najee Harris's. You're not going to be able to get Chase Brown, but you would try. At this point, I don't know. I don't want Ramondre. No, thank you. Aaron Jones is a buy low potential option. Breece Hall is a buy low potential option. David Montgomery could potentially be found because he hasn't scored a touchdown in quite a while or not consistently enough. Players like that. You can go after them, Brian Robinson Jr., and see what comes of it. Thank you. Let's see here. Ibrahim sends in a question. Says, Shakir, 4 Neighbors. Should I take Shakir? No, absolutely not. Keep Neighbors. Thank you. Roy Shaver says, rant in chat. Okay, Roy. Says, could have played Love over Kyler, but I didn't. That was the craziest thing. Who would have guessed that the Arizona Cardinals were going to score, I think 29 points as a team? Let me see here. Week 9 NFL. What was the crazy? Let me see here. Where's the stats? The Arizona Cardinals scored 29 points, and Kyler wasn't implicated for 1 touchdown. Every single touchdown was a rushing touchdown to Demercado, Trey Benson, and Trey McBride. That's as unlucky as it gets. But let's get to your overall rant here. Could have played Rico over JT, but didn't. Yeah, that I don't blame you on. Could have played Ladd over DJ. Yeah, okay. But didn't. What do? I lose by 0.64. Dude, that is rough. That is definitely rough, brother. But yeah, the Kyler situation is so unlucky, it is ridiculous. Absolutely. I would have thought on at least one of those overall rushing plays, he would have had the QB keep and ran into the pylon. Didn't. I almost lost my home league because of Kyler in that circumstance. Only put up 4.96, I think, this week in a 6-point per passing touchdown league. Beautiful. We love to see it. Let's see here. The S-Box sends in a question. Says, I'm thinking about making a trade. Devontae Smith and Eckler for Pickens and Tracy. Cool. Sounds good to me. I'm down with that. Give me Pickens and Tracy rest of the way. What do you think? I could replace Smith with Dobbs or Jennings. Yeah, if you replace Smith with Dobbs or Jennings, great. Send those 2 away first because I'd rather keep Smith, especially with A.J. Brown continuing to find himself getting injured. Smith continues to, obviously get himself an increase of overall potential value in that circumstance, especially with Goddard still out. So, yes, if you can trade away Dobbs or Jennings in exchange with Eckler to get Pickens and Tracy, do so. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Raymond T says, trade Kyron for Jefferson. Other running backs are Saquon, Mixon, Pollard. Yes, I would absolutely be willing to make that trade. Yeah, for sure, make that, Raymond. Because again, your number 1 and number 2 running back are Mixon and Saquon. And there's no question about it. Those are going to be your starters rest of the way. And when they have their bye weeks, which again, Saquon has already experienced, and eventually Mixon will, but in the absence of him, I'm pretty sure, let me see here. Let's see, what week do they have a bye week? Is it a week 14 bye? So it's not week 11. So let's see, is it week 12? I'm curious if they share the same bye week. It's not week 12. Oh goodness, you might be in a situation here upcoming. Is it week 14? Okay, so it's not. Okay, so you'll be fine. Let me check. Yeah, because the Titans have already had their bye week, right? I'm fairly sure of that. Let's see here, Titans schedule, because the only thing you'll have to worry about is the Mixon bye week, which yes, the Titans have already had their bye week 5. So yeah, you're good. I'd absolutely make that move for sure. Let's see here. Unknown Cayman says, what's your thoughts on the San Francisco running backs? Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty simple. Christian McCaffrey's back, the return of the king. He's going to be back to scoring his 20 points per game. And Garendo is the RB2. Because Mason's shoulder cannot sustain multiple hits over the course of a singular game. And if he does, and he lands the wrong way, he gets pulled. So Garendo's the RB2 rest of the way, in my opinion. Unless, of course, they somehow have sent him to Germany in the bye week and they, reconstructed his shoulder. All right, let's see here. Thank you, S-Box. Again, appreciate it. Twisted Folk had sent in a question. Says, in a half PPR, no one in my league trades. Yep, that's understandable. Again, there are a lot of leagues that will be inactive. Because, again, a lot of them either just really believe that their teams are it, or they just don't really care enough to trade. Especially, like, if the buy-in is too low, like, if you only have, like, let's say a $50 buy-in, in 16 weeks, 17 weeks, what's $50? Divided by 17, what's the number? Like, per week, they don't give it, So, like, they're just like, all right, well, I don't need to have to trade, because if I trade and I'm the one getting screwed, I'm going to look like an idiot, right? So they just don't care. But as for your team, if you're saying, if I have to drop one, St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Metcalf, Jaden Reed, Hopkins, Kamara, Jacobs, Connor, Chase Brown, Tracy, Bowers, McBride. Okay, so if you have to drop one, theoretically have to. Okay, so Tracy's the drop. That's it. Pure and simple. Sweet and simple. Nobody else is droppable. That is your weakest link. And you've got a bunch of strong links there. So really, that is your guy. Let's see here. Lilin Lee. It doesn't say Lilin. It says Yeelin Lee. I don't know why it's so difficult for me to say that. It says Smith or T. Higgins. In the rest of season, if T. Higgins was healthy, I would say I'd rather have him. But considering, again, I don't know what his timeline to return is, I'd just rather have Devontae Smith at the moment and going forward. All right, let's see here. Courtney Robinson says, I have Jaden Reed, DK. Oh, no, that's probably not Jaden Reed. That's probably Jaden Daniels. Okay, either way. I have Jaden, Metcalf, Tillman, Tolbert, Allen, Coleman. Running backs are J.K. Hubbard, Jacobs, Kittle, Otten. Is there a follow-up question there? Let me see. See if I can find. I think my YouTube crashed. Dude, why is the F3 function break so often? Come on, man. This YouTube chat is so good. All right. If you have a follow-up question to that, Courtney, let me know. Otherwise, continuing on, we have Neil Patel who sent in a question. Thank you, Neil. Neil says, I have Allen, Achane, Montgomery, Connor, Hunt, Dowdle, Tyreek, Nico, Hopkins, Ladd, Leggett, Bowers, Pitts. I'm 5-4. I like my depth, which I do as well. Do I force a 2-for-1 trade? Okay, so looking at the depth as a whole. So Allen doesn't get moved. Achane doesn't get moved. Montgomery, Connor are great because, again, Hunt will eventually disappear and you will need at least 3 solid running backs. And then you have Dowdle as the insurance policy in case any injury was to occur rest of the way. He is pretty much your handcuff to your entire team in terms of long-term value. Tyreek, Nico, D-Hop, Ladd is great. Again, if you're going to force a 2-for-1, you would theoretically do so with... I mean, you could. You technically could. But if you... Okay, so this is the way I see it, Neil Patel. If you were going to make a forced 2-for-1, you would take someone like Montgomery and you would take someone like D-Hop and you would go get a top-tier player. When I mean top-tier player is you would trade them both and try to go after Bijan Robinson. Like, that's legitimately what you would have to go after. But again, you would have to get a running back in return if you were going to give away one of your top 3 backs. So if you're going to give away Achane, Montgomery, or Connor, you have to get a running back in return. If you're going to give away, let's say, for example, Hunt or Dowdle, along with D-Hop, Ladd, Leggett, or one of these lesser wide receiver options that you don't plan on utilizing for the remainder of the season, you would ask for a wide receiver in exchange. That's the way you go about it. Now, if you go for a 2-for-1, again, I mean, there are a lot of opportunities in which you could do so. Again, Hunt is probably not a tradable option unless you're trading him to the Pacheco manager. So, and Dowdle, with the recent injuries to quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, makes him a less appealing option, in my opinion. Because again, there's less of an opportunity for them to run the ball in negative game scripts. But yeah, as of right now, I don't think you need to make a move. But if you were going to, that's how you do it. You would take one of your stud running backs and a D-Hop that just had a major week, and you'd go after a superior top-tier, top 6 running back. Or you would, of course, take a lesser running back like Dowdle and Hunt, along with D-Hop still, or Ladd, or whatever they want, except for Tyreek and Nico. You got to keep those two. And you ship it off. Now, as for the Bowers-Pitts combo, Bowers never moves. He should be your starter rest of season. If someone in your league, again, is desperate for tight end, you could also 2-for-1 in that circumstance where you're giving away Pitts and a running back, get a running back in return. Pitts and a wide receiver, get a wide receiver in return. That's the way you go about it. So again, if the opportunity presents itself and it is something that obviously brings back a top tier player, then let's go for it. Otherwise, don't need it, sit on it, and just wait. Easy E sends in a question. Thank you. Says super flex, 3 wide receiver. We have Leggett. Wait, no, LG. What is LG? 3 wide receiver LG. Because LG, from what I remember, is last game. Okay, when you call LG, it's last game. But I don't think that's what you mean in this case. Either way, it says quarterbacks are Daniels, Murray, and Jones, along with Nix. Okay, so you've got 4 quarterbacks in a super flex. Very well. Wide receivers are CD, Neighbors, Cup, Smith, BTJ. Running backs are Achane, Montgomery, Tracy. My tight end is McBride. Defense is the Vikings and Chargers. Drop Nix, week 12. Any changes? At this point, not really. I would want to have maybe one more running back of depth, but honestly, considering you're probably playing in like a full PPR format, I'd rather have the wide receiver sit in my flex position. So I don't actually make any objective changes. I don't have any suggestions here. Maybe you want to move from CeeDee Lamb, but I don't think you have to either. If someone is going to pay top dollar for CeeDee Lamb because they're going to give you an elite wide receiver in exchange for it, then sure, we can trade CeeDee Lamb for an AJ Brown or something like that, or an Amon-Ra St. Brown. But unless they're giving you something like that back, you'd have to be going after like Devontae Smith's, which again isn't terrible, but obviously it could burn if Dak Prescott was to come back sooner rather than later. But again, we don't know what the overall extent of that injury is. A lot of uncertainty in that conversation. Alrighty, let's see here. CS Derek says, I dropped 186. I'm now 7-2. Congratulations, CS Derek. Glad to hear it. But job's not done. 7-2 is great. Got to get to the playoffs and got to keep winning. Let's see here. Yes, what should I do? I added Quentin Johnston in a 12-team league. Okay, cool. Based on post earlier. Cool. Let me see what the context of this team is, Courtney. So, Jaden Daniels. Is it Jaden Daniels? I'm assuming it is, right? I think that's a very safe assumption. So, you have Jaden Daniels. So, considering you don't have Metcalf or Tillman to play this week, you're going to have to kind of fend. And then Keon Coleman's probably injured. Maybe doesn't play this week. Your starting wide receivers will be Tolbert, Allen, and Quentin Johnston, which again, I think you can survive at least 1 week off that. I don't want to make any immediate trades because again, look, theoretically, you could trade Metcalf and Tillman away for wide receivers that are equivalent in terms of their value. If you can do so, great. If your league is not one that trades, again, at this point, you're just sitting on what you have and just waiting for them to return from their bye week. Because every player has a bye week. And again, even if you don't win this week, depending on your record, it may not matter. Or again, it may be a super important week to win. If you're sitting at like a 4, let's say, for example, you're an even 5-4, 4-5, I'd wait with what you have. But if you're sitting at like 3-6, 2-7, I'm trading away Metcalf and Tillman immediately. And I'm trying to get wide receivers to start for me this week. But I think it's again, it is very much so dependent on what your record sits at as to what kind of potential variable moves we should be looking into this week. LG means league gang. Okay, I don't even know what that. But Mikey, that didn't help, brother. I don't know what you're talking about. All right, let's see here. Jack Garcia says, hey man, Goddard, Hawkinson, or Kraft rest of season. As of right now, I'm probably going to lean, well, if it's a full PPR, I'm probably going to lean towards Hawkinson. I think eventually it will be him. That will be the most valuable, and he will probably score the most points out of the group. Then it'll be Kraft second, Goddard third, because again, hamstring injuries at that age, every year he keeps getting injured. It's just, it doesn't build the right way. Hopefully he'll be back sooner rather than later, but in the uncertainty of that, he'll have to be the last ranked. Allen or Hurts rest of season. Let me look at their strength of schedules before I make a declaration on that. Again, I don't think there's a wrong answer. I think they're both incredible players. Jalen Hurts running like a madman, scoring 6 rushing touchdowns in the last, 3 games? That is, that's different. That's not normally. So let's see here. Rest of season quarterback strength of schedule. Let's look at the overall fantasy playoff schedule here. In terms of what the Bills have, they take on Detroit, they take on New England, and they take on the Jets, which I think, again, those are great matchups internally there. And then we have the Philadelphia Eagles who take on Pittsburgh, Washington, and Dallas. I think those are solid as well. As of right now, considering technically Jalen Hurts has more rushing upside in comparison to what has been presented thus far from Josh Allen, I'd probably lean towards what's his name? Jalen Hurts in this circumstance. ICU Mark, who says 10-team full PPR, 2 wide receiver, 2 flex league. I'm currently 6-3. My team consists of Mahomes, which, listen, finally Mahomes. It took him a matchup against Tampa Bay, which again, everyone has dominated against, but finally a 3-touchdown game. I mean, when was the last time Mahomes had a 3-touchdown game? I know I'm pulling an ADHD kind of off topics, conversation topic here, but let's see here. The last time he threw 3 touchdowns in a game or more was back in week 7 of last year against the Chargers. Okay. And that was October 22nd of 2023. So almost a full 365 plus to throw another 3-touchdown game. So pretty interesting. Herbert, Bijan. Okay. So you have Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Bijan, Ramondre, Tracy, CeeDee Lamb, Garrett Wilson, D-Hop, Higgins, Sutton, which has played incredibly well, Quentin Johnson back, Pop Douglas, Kraft, Ertz, anyone I should sell high. I mean, as of right now, I think Quentin Johnston's someone that you could look to sell high. I think you could also do the same with D-Hop. I think you could do the same with, Cortland Sutton. I think it's just a matter of what you're getting in exchange. Every player has a variable value to where in any situation, they are tradable. So in this circumstance, I'm willing to move any of those 3 players if you're, again, quote unquote, selling high. I don't want to move Garrett Wilson. I'd like to keep him on roster. Higgins is not a sell high option. Those running backs are, if you can sell Ramondre, please do so. If you look at the last 3 games for Ramondre Stevenson, it is disastrous. And yes, he's scoring touchdowns, but it is not sustainable. His last 3 games, 7 rushes for 18 yards, 20 rushes for 48 yards, and 10 rushes for 16 yards. To put it into perspective, let's pull out the calculator here. He has had 37 rushing attempts for a total of 16 plus 48 plus 18. He's had 82 yards on 37. He is averaging 2.21 yards per carry in the last 3 games. It is not pretty. It is not okay. Yes, he scored 4 touchdowns in the last 2 games, but when I look at his upcoming schedule, let's see here. If we go to the Patriots schedule here, Chicago this week's not bad. LA Rams next week's not bad. Dolphins is not bad. Colts, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, actually has decent matchups. Now, as for the fantasy playoffs, Cardinals, Buffalo, Chargers, I don't love that. But for the next couple weeks, again, if you can't move them and make a huge upgrade off of it, which, again, I'm still trying to do, those are the kind of players. Mondre, D-Hop, Sutton, Quentin Johnston, let's try to move one of those guys and see if we can maybe sell them high. Again, it's going to require a team that needs a wide receiver or needs a running back in exchange for it. If you're moving Ramondre, you obviously want a running back in exchange. If you're moving a wide receiver of this caliber, there's a possibility that there's someone in your league that wants D-Hop, Mondre combo, and you can send them both out for a running back in exchange and just try to make a huge upgrade in that circumstance. Someone says, I'm desperate for a wide receiver 2 in a full PPR. Trade away my Pollard for George Pickens. If you're trading away Pollard, okay, hold up 1 second here. In a full PPR scoring format here, just looking at Pollard's production over the course of the season, obviously he's averaging about 15 points per game. So let's see what has Pickens accomplished the last 2 weeks here with Mr. Russell Wilson, 22 and 11. So basically about 15 points per game. In terms of equivalent value, I think I'm okay with it. Obviously, I want to keep running back depth, but assuming you have enough depth to be able to fill in his absence, then sure, that's okay. Mikey says, I should have added a comma. It just means league. Okay. No, you're good, Mikey. When you put league gang, I was like, LG league gang. What does the gang part have to do with it? So yeah, I got you. I got you now. You got me confused there. I was like, what is this guy talking about? CS Get Derek was saying both my quarterbacks are on a bye week in the first round. Wait, okay, hold up, guys. If you play in a fantasy league where the first round of your playoffs is week 14, leave the league. Tell your commissioner that you are not going to pay the entry fee if your fantasy playoffs start in week 14. There are 6 teams on bye week 14. It is unconscionable to have your league, Bush League actually, have a week 14 start of the playoffs. Do not play in a league like that. Make them change the settings right now. You can do that. If you're on Yahoo, you can go to the commissioner settings and you can change the playoffs to being week 15 through 17 as they should be. Do not play in a league where you have a week 14 beginning of the playoffs. That is, again, unacceptable. We cannot have that. There's a reason why it starts in week 15 because there are no more bye weeks henceforth after that. And there's a reason why we don't play in week 18 is because teams sit their starters once they've clinched the playoffs or are out of the playoff running. Okay, scrolling down here, Vitamin Me sends in a question. Thank you. Says, quarterback is Tua/Goff. We have wide receivers Hill, CD, Puka, Evans. We have running backs Hall, Jones, White, McBride, Kraft, PPR 10-team league. I'm 6-3 now because I lost to the worst team. Do I make any moves? I mean, look, at this point, the biggest disappointments is really the fact that Hall and Jones are not scoring touchdowns. Tyreek Hill hasn't scored a touchdown even in the return of Tua. Puka Nacua has been a little bit beat up. Evans has been beat up. CeeDee Lamb just got hurt. Like, you are getting the vitamin. You're honestly, congratulations on the record you have. You are now going through the blender. And everyone, you've already gone through the blender with Hall earlier this season, Jones getting injured, Hill not having Tua, and still managing to have the record that you've gone ahead and created with a 6-3 overall outlook. Congratulations. You've somehow flown through this overall disaster. But now you're going through another blender. At this point, if you are going to have to make moves, again, at running back, Hall and Jones are guys that I'm willing to rock with for the remainder of the season. As for wide receiver, again, if CeeDee Lamb isn't going to be the valuable option that we want him to be, if we get more information regarding Dak Prescott's extension of time that he could miss, then I try to, obviously do away with him and give him away. But, not give him away, but obviously trade for a piece that I can at least utilize and have a little bit more confidence in. But if CeeDee Lamb's shoulder isn't going to be serious and he's not going to miss any time, then I'm just keeping it as is, and I'm keeping the band together. I'm not breaking up yet. I think you've still got a really strong core once they're all healthy and ready to go. CS Derek says, leagues on sleeper. I'll let my commissioner know. Yeah, you absolutely should. AK, your Rams whoop my Seahawks? No. Listen. The Seahawks threw that game. The Rams were given the opportunity to pull it out because Geno Smith threw some terrible interceptions. Again, think about it this way. Geno Smith threw 2 interceptions in the red zone. That in itself is a 13-point swing. That game never goes to overtime if he just sits there, takes the sacks, and kicks field goals. That game is not close. Geno Smith gave it away. Whooped is really just a matter of the Rams took advantage of the opportunity that Geno Smith presented, and they ran away with it. Otherwise, the Rams, again, did not look great at all in a lot of those circumstances over the course of that game. Patrick G. Mafia says, Sermon, then Madison, back-to-back weeks. Not good, Andrew. I don't know what we're talking about. Sermon and then Madison. If you're complaining, what does it say? Madison over Rachaad White was a bad call. Listen, brother, if you think overall, okay, that there aren't going to be calls that are going to be missed, then hey, you think this is a completely different reality than what it is. Calls will be missed. Understand that there are variables outside of my overall control that are going to lead to players playing better than others, right? A Rachaad White touchdown on the goal line is typically not implicated because typically it's Bucky Irving in that conversation. Madison having himself a complete debacle of a situation where Zamir White steals a touchdown for him, that isn't expected because, again, he has been the primary back of that offense on the goal line over the course of the last month, right? So there are variables throughout the entirety of fantasy football, every game, every week, and there are circumstances that, again, are going to occur that, yeah, we're going to be wrong on. And I have no issue being wrong on these things. Again, the research that I do makes me confident in my decisions. Would I have changed my mind on the overall situation of Rachaad White being higher ranked than Alexander Madison? In a full PPR, yes, he was higher ranked. In a half PPR, no. because I would expect that Madison is significantly a higher or has a higher potential of scoring a touchdown. And again, I wouldn't expect the Zamir White to show up and steal those. But look, if you're upset about it, I apologize that it obviously didn't go well for you. But again, there are going to be situations like this that they happen. And as much as we want them to go the right way, sometimes they just don't. And it sucks. Justice Reborn sent in a question. Where's Justice? Says, trade A.J. Brown for McConkey and Hopkins. A.J. Brown for McConkey and Hopkins. I don't know about that. Waddle is doing nothing for me, and A.J. seems injury prone. I don't... Okay, look, here's the thing. Dude, that's... Okay. So let's see. Oh, man. If I could get a guarantee that AJ is going to miss time, then sure. But I don't know if Ladd McConkey is enough. Because, so Ladd McConkey is startable, but is still a sketchy play every week. He is a wide receiver 3. He is rankings between 25 through 36 to 40. He's going to be in that range. He has the potential of a touchdown, especially considering this offense is throwing the ball significantly more going forward. But in this circumstance, if they can tell me that A.J. Brown's playing this week, then I'm going to keep him, and I'm not going to make that trade. But if he goes down and they're like, yeah, likelihood is he's going to miss a couple weeks, I'm shipping him off because I can't afford to lose games if I'm still trying to make the playoffs here. Let's see here. We had a question. Okay, Justice, did you have any more contests, Justice? Let me see if there's anything else here, my man. Trade. Yeah, okay, got it. So, yeah, again, Waddle... If you guys saw the yardage count from Waddle, he had negative yards at the end of the game. Understand the reason why he had negative yards at the end of the game is because at the final play of the game, they were going back and forth, kind of fumble-rooskieing, and he ran back 12 yards, and then he got tackled. So because of that, it diminished all of the yardage that he accumulated. It was more like 20 yards, but he got all of his yardage yoinked away because he was tackled trying to make a fumble-rooski play. So that is the unfortunate nature. But yes, he's still not the overall normal Jalen Waddle. Be patient with it. This week they take on the Rams. We just saw what JSN and Lockett just did, and I can very easily assume that we'll see a lot of production out of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle this week. I just be patient with it. Vitamin Mean says, if I can add to my super chat, is Tua enough rest of season? No, I don't think so. I think Jared Goff is going to be the guy that you roll with rest of the way there. Should I try to move for a player for someone like Baker for the playoffs? If you can get Baker for the playoffs, I mean, just looking at his upcoming schedule here, Baker, actually, let's not even look at Baker. Tampa Bay schedule. Hopefully it doesn't pull up, the Lightning. Okay, good. So looking at their playoff schedule, again, week 15 against the Chargers, it is not an easy matchup. Week 16 against the Dallas Cowboys will be great, and in week 17 against Carolina will be great. But just looking at their upcoming schedule, obviously next week against San Francisco is not a cakewalk, but after the week 11 bye, week 12 and beyond, again, I think it's really, really advantageous. If you can get Baker with Mike Evans back week 12 and beyond, taking on the Giants, the Carolina Panthers, the Vegas Raiders. Wow, win. Then they take on the Los Angeles Chargers, competitive game. If they win that, wouldn't be a surprise because, again, Baker's played incredibly well. Taking on the Cowboys and then the Carolina Panthers again. There is a chance that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win out the final 7 games of the season to make the playoffs. I really do believe they can. So if you can get Baker, that would, I think, be the ideal situation in your circumstance, Vitamin Me. Would you drop Mason for Warren or Garendo? Do you have Christian McCaffrey? If you have McCaffrey, then I'd pick up Garendo just to be safe with it. But if you don't, I think I'm okay going with Warren in that circumstance, because if you may need a situation in which you need to throw in a running back for an upcoming bye week, if you have a bye-apocalypse, then I think that he will probably be able to help you in that circumstance. The Raiders suck, but Madison was getting the work. Yeah, look, the Raiders... You guys saw what they did this morning, right? They fired every offensive coach, the offensive coordinator, the offensive line coach, the quarterbacks coach. I think they literally cleared house. I don't even know if they have any offensive coaches. I don't know what, in fact, they're going to deal with this week. They might have the defensive coordinator calling plays. I don't know. They don't even know who's calling plays this week. It's going to be interesting. Anonymous says, Exhibit A, how many people played BTJ, him over Mooney this week? Yeah, that would have been rough. How many people thought Puka and A.J. Brown would combine for 5 points? Yeah. I mean, Anonymous, you hit it right on the head, brother. You hit it right on the head. JMO season is probably done. The Lions just want to run. No, listen, the Lions wanted to run because, well, okay, first of all, the Lions are a football team that are coming out every single week and trying to embarrass their opponents. How do they first and foremost establish, the beatdown? Running the ball the entire first quarter. Did you guys watch the first quarter of that game? Jahmyr Gibbs didn't play a single snap because for 8 straight minutes, they ran the ball with David Montgomery until they got to the 1-yard line and then decided to throw to, Amon-Ra St. Brown as an Amon-Ra St. Brown manager. Thank you very much. We'll take that. But, dude, they want to beat you down by running the ball. And then, of course, eventually when it starts raining, continue to run the ball. Outside of that scenario, yeah. When they get into the indoor, less rainy events, which, again, if you look at the Lions' upcoming schedule, they'll be fine. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for Jared Goff to air it out. Like this upcoming week at Houston, indoor stadium. Then at Jacksonville, probably not going to rain. At Indianapolis, indoor stadium. Then they play against Chicago week 13, which again is a little bit of a trouble situation because it could be snowing by then in the late November period. Then they have Green Bay at home. They have Buffalo at home. And then, never mind. They have Chicago at home on week 13. Their week 16 matchup against Chicago is away. That could be a problem. But then they have at San Francisco. So the only implicated kind of weather game is week 16. Outside of that, they should be indoors and lighting teams up, which again, we all know the record of Jared Goff indoors, right? It's a ridiculous win rate. Is Jayden Reed reliable rest of season? I mean, look, the only thing that has ever held back Jayden Reed is target opportunity. That is literally it. He is a talented enough wide receiver to where he should dominate every single week if Jordan Love continues to look in his direction. Obviously, like I told you guys on Sunday, he is going to get himself 6 targets, and there is a lot of room for error if he isn't able to, put together a great overall workload with that. Luckily, he did. He had himself like a 40-yard reception at the end of the first half with time expiring. Jordan Love tried to throw a Hail Mary, but he was 20 yards short. But either way, Reed made the reception, which obviously saved his performance. 5 catches for 113. Is he a start every week? If he's healthy, yes, he should be a top 24 wide receiver every week. The only unfortunate nature is the most recent performances as of late have been running games where, of course, unfortunately, we're getting Jordan Love injured and he has to get pulled out of the game. And when you put Malik Willis in, Jayden Reed isn't relevant. So that's the only threat. But if Jordan Love is healthy, the offense should look and kind of play through Jayden Reed within the passing game and Romeo Doubs. Vitamin Me says, who would you move off my first super chat? Let me see here. For Baker. I mean, I'm assuming if you're going to trade for Baker, they want a quarterback in exchange, right? So you're going to have to send away if you're going to have to send away Jared Goff, I mean, at this point, you just keep Goff because I think his schedule is fine. But if you're playing are you playing in a 2 QB league, Vitamin? That's my real question. You don't have to send in any super chats. Just type it in the live chat. Is this a 1 QB league that you start, or is it a 2 QB league in terms of your starting lineups? Let's see here. Kuang says, drop Worthy for nothing. Yeah, I think you could drop Worthy. I think that's fine. Again, Worthy's going to have these weeks where he goes for 10 points or he goes for 0 points, and there is no in between. Really, that's just how it is. Lost by 0.74. Opponent had Kelsey and had the Chiefs defense. Crazy. Yeah, that is rough. That's basically just 1 sack or one, in a PPR reception. Hank Hill says, hey, Andrew. Hank Hill here, assistant manager of Strickland Propane. You got all the propane accessories, right? Should I try to drop Pittman for JMO in a 12-team full PPR? Thanks for the help. All right, so as of right now, okay, let me see here. Look, here's the thing with JMO. If he's given the opportunity, he's great. But the issue is, this season, it has been kind of lackluster. So the last 4 games that Jameson Williams has played, 3, 2, 4, and 1. He has had a total of 10 total targets in the last 4 games. Now, in 2 of those games, he scored 50-yard plus touchdowns. In the other 2 games, scored 1.2 and 0.6 fantasy points. I think in the long term, the value of these 2 is probably going to be like, Jameson Williams is too volatile for me to trust every week, and I expect Flacco to play significantly better in the upcoming matchups. Now, this week they take on Buffalo, which isn't exciting, but in terms of the long term, I'd probably rather have Michael Pittman because of the Flacco presence, because I do expect him to be more valuable. While JMO, as of late, again, far too volatile. If he's going to have these games where he only has 2, 3, or 1 reception, if he's not breaking out a 50-yard receiving touchdown, we're screwed. Which, again, I don't want to have a player that is only going to score 3 points as my flex. Andrew Ming sends in a question, says, okay, by the way, before I get to Andrew Ming's question, Vitamin Me said, I'm in a 1 quarterback league. Cool. So if you're gonna try to trade for Baker Mayfield, if the team with Baker Mayfield already is starting him, you're gonna have to give Jared Goff for them. Or you're going to have to give Tua plus another player, which in this circumstance, if you've already got Goff, I'm just going to start Goff the rest of the way. If they're willing to take Goff and another piece, Like, let's say, for example, they don't have a great tight end. They'll take Goff and Kraft. Then I'm okay with that. I don't have an issue with that at all. Because at that point, again, it's not going to affect you because they're not even starting for your team at that point. Andrew Meng sends in a question. Says, hey, Andrew, I need a drop opinion to pick up a kicker. JSN, Ladd, Laporta, Deontay, Bigsby, Waddle. Need to drop both kicker right now and activate a player off IR. Okay, so if you... Wait. So of the available that you have, we cannot drop a lot of these players. If I was going to drop one, I think it's very much so dependent on what kind of running back depth you have. Because if Bigsby is never going to start for you, then I'm just going to drop him. I don't need him on roster. If he is literally never going to play and you have 3 other running backs that are studs and you're never going to have a bipocalypse and you can establish that, I drop Bigsby. Otherwise, Deontay Johnson gets the axe. Hank Hill, no problem. Thank you. Roy Shaver says, oh yeah, Reichard was my kicker. Yeah, that is rough. Can you imagine? The guy literally pulls his quad, his hamstring, missing field goals. What a disaster. Brian Robinson, a short or long-term injury? I have no clue. Again, he's been dealing with that for a while now. Obviously, he's missed a couple weeks, so hopefully it's a short-term kind of fix and not something that is going to continue to plague him in that circumstance. Austin M says, sell high on Hopkins, or is he a PPR monster like Rashee Rice used to be? Could be a solid wide receiver 1. I think you should probably keep him. If you're going to sell him, you'd have to sell him again high. So what does that mean? I'm getting back a top-tier player. Like if I'm going to move a D-Hop right now, someone better be giving back like a Devontae Adams. That's what I want in exchange. I still want a player that is implicated in being a top 20-ish wide receiver, if not better. If I can get something like that in return, then I am all for it. Otherwise, I'm not trading him for, I don't know, let me throw out. Okay, so like if I could trade him for, I'm not going to move him to go get Michael Pittman. I'm not going to move him to go get like these lesser options that are going to be volatile. I have no interest in that. If I'm going to sell him off, it's going to be for top tier players like a Malik Neighbors, a Devontae Adams, something of that exchange, a Zay Flowers, a Terry McLaurin. I want somebody up of the top tier. If not, then there's no point in moving him because the way that this offense looked today, it's running through him and Kelsey, and that is it. And the running game, which obviously is always going to be implicated. So outside of those two, nobody else really caught the ball. Maybe we had one completion for Justin Watson over the middle, a couple screen passes, a couple gadget plays from McCole Hardman and Worthy, but otherwise it's the Hopkins show at this point. So unless you're going to get a top tier wide receiver in exchange, someone's going to give you an Amon-Ra, someone's going to give you something of that exchange or conversation. I'd be willing to take a DK Metcalf, a Drake London, but again, the injury implication makes it a little bit sketchier, which makes me not want to move that. So yeah, unless someone's going to give you that, you just hold on tight. Jackson sends in a question, says, I have Kelsey and Otten, Reed, JSN, and D-Hop, trade ideas. If you're going to trade away one of those 2 tight ends, again, it's very much so dependent on what you want in exchange. If, let's say, for example, again, you could take one of those tight ends to a team that has no tight end overall coverage and send them off and get a 1-for-1 exchange for a wide receiver or a running back. Just depends on what you need. Now, if a 1-for-1 doesn't seem to kind of line up, then you would take Otten plus, for example, either JSN or D-Hop, and you would trade them for one of their top tier receivers. That's what you would do. If you can do so, send away. Because again, Kelsey would be your starter the rest of the way, or you could do it the vice versa, where you're sending away Kelsey and a D-Hop, and you're going and getting a top tier wide receiver. But in that kind of scenario where you're sending away Kelsey and D-Hop, I better be getting back a Jamar Chase. Like at that point, I'm giving you a lot of potential for points. So they better be kind of reciprocating the value. Let's see here. Courtney says, thanks for answering. No problem. Thank you. Lethal Jake says, biggest matchup of the year for me. The guy second place to me had Reichard 7-2. We go. All right. Congratulations. Ulysses Mendez says, I'm 8-1 in a full PPR, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 2 flex league. We have Barkley, Jacobs, Swift, Stevenson, and Bigsby. Wide receivers are St. Brown, Flowers, Sutton, Dobbs, Mike Evans, and Debo. Any trades that I can make to improve this team? I mean, look, I'm always trying to move Stevenson. If you can, you should try to move him. As for who we're going after, again, I'd really like to get James Conner right now. Aaron Jones also, I think, is another option that I'd like to go after. If you can buy low on those options, theoretically, I would do so. As for your wide receivers, I don't really think that they need to move. I think they just need to get healthy because otherwise, St. Brown, Flowers, and Debo are your starts automatically every week. You could theoretically take Sutton and Stevenson and try to go make an upgrade at running back, which I think could be a significant one. But considering you're playing in a 2 flex league with 2 wide receivers, I'd like to probably keep that depth so that you can can potentially play St. Brown, Flowers, Sutton, and Debo every week henceforth until the return of Mike Evans. And then at that point, if the trade deadline is still available, then you can make a swap. But as of right now, yeah, Stevenson's the guy that I'm trying to move, if in fact you're capable of doing so. If someone, again, in your league is willing to take them off your hands, which, again, I mentioned earlier, the last 3 games, he's averaging 2.12 yards per carry on average, which isn't a great number. Let's see here. Thoughts on Najee rest of the season? Should be great. Again, he should continue to be like in a half PPR. I know you asked for a full PPR, but let's say for half PPR terms, because again, that is what I'm most comfortable with, because that's typically what I talk about over the course of the week in terms of rankings. He should be 12 to 13 points rest of season, kind of that RB 18 kind of the rest of the way. He should be. For full PPR, considering he doesn't get as much exposure to opportunity within the receiving game, it makes him obviously a lesser option and less desirable, but still a solid play. Still going to be that 12, 13 point range upside. That gets him to like the 18 point kind of conversation. Someone gave you Hurts for Hopkins. That's why. Okay, he's probably talking to somebody else. Don't worry about it. Wish I found you weeks ago. The league dropped players like a bad habit. Yeah, listen, patience is the name of the game as of this season. Someone got Hurts, A.J. Brown for Nuke, Cousins, and Jacobs. He got Christian Kirk, but we know what happened there. Okay, yeah. That's interesting. Schnabel says, is Ricky Pearsall worth keeping on roster, or should I stream a wide receiver? It depends on what is available in your league, Schnabel. Yeah, like if any of the wide receivers that are available on today's episode, for example, like if Xavier Legette is available, I probably think he's just more valuable. Considering last week's overall kind of exchange of moving away from Deontay Johnson, trading him away, and in the conversation of probably by tomorrow morning, we're going to see Adam Thielen move. Yeah, I think that kind of opens up some more opportunity for him that I'd rather, make that potential kind of exchange to get him off roster. Let's see here. Maddie says, thoughts on Hill rest of the season? He'll be better. He'll be better. Just give him some time. Duro Modi sends in a question. Says, Drew, thanks for the feedback all season. Got offered DK for D-Hop. Interesting. Also getting offered McLaurin for D-Hop. Okay, I'd rather have that. Would you do any of those? Yeah, I think I'd rather have a McLaurin. Look, McLaurin has been insane. The production he has put forth is, I understand he only had 2 receptions yesterday, but when he continues to score touchdowns, it doesn't matter. Like the guy since week 3, 20.0, 18.2, 13.4, 23.3, 15.8, 17.5, 15.9. In one of those games was without Jaden Daniels, in which he still scored 15.8 with Marcus Mariota. Like the guy he's just so consistent that I'm willing to make that exchange. Not deal with the DK Metcalf injury, with any sort of potential repercussions of that and a re-aggravation. If you want to keep D-Hop, I have no issue keeping him, but I would probably just take the easy bait of what McLaurin could provide for the remainder of the season, considering how incredible he has looked with obviously the huge upgrade at quarterback. Okay, y'all. So typically I like to keep these streams about an hour to an hour and a half. We're about an hour 22 in. I think that's where I'm going to call it. Again, I appreciate y'all coming through. I did post the waiver wire video earlier today. I'll be back tomorrow with my top 40 running back rankings. Again, that's where I'm going. I'm going literally to turn off this stream and then work on those rankings so that I can prepare for tomorrow. And then we'll talk about, any sort of waiver wire questions tomorrow night. I will be live starting at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'll be live for another hour and 20, similar to today, tomorrow night. So if you have any questions, be sure to swing on by. If you want your question to be answered before then, potentially, you can check out the Patreon. There's a link down in the description. If that's something that works within your overall situation, go for it. If not, again, I will be here tomorrow and hopefully be able to answer your question via personally, straight and direct, or via proxy of also answering somebody else's question. But outside of that, again, you can always get the rankings via Patreon, or you can find it via Underdog. I appreciate y'all. Thank you again. Outside of that, I'm cueing the music. Have a great rest of your night. I appreciate all the love and the continued support. Again, I'll be back tomorrow. Until then, we're cueing the music. Enjoy the guitar, and I'll see you next time. Peace. I would not drop Jalen Colbert. Brandon,